Okay, I am meeting with my principal today, Angela Arnett, and she is going to answer some questions for me. What are some of the characteristics a principal needs in order to successfully lead a school that fosters a rich learning environment for all students?
I think that you have to have a great rapport, understand the importance of a good rapport with your community, with your stakeholders, with your parents, with your students, and with your teachers. I feel like another characteristic that you need to have is a great work ethic. It's a lot of work, working with the school, working with children, so you have to be willing and be dedicated to do those things on a day in, day out basis. Being a principal never turns off. It doesn't stop when you go in public. It does, so you have to be prepared. And you said as far as academic growth, what was the last part of the question?
Just that fosters a rich learning environment.
You have to understand the importance of looking at your data and teaching that to your teachers. If the teachers don't understand the data, they don't know how to use it, and that's something that has to be modeled.
Okay, do you feel that your family is neglected in any way by being a principal?
Yes. Yes, I am very blessed with a husband who takes up my slack, but we do struggle with balance, and I think that any principal, especially a female, will struggle with the balance between mom and boss. And right now I'm in a great phase of life where my children are at my school with me, which there's, pros and cons to that, but I can see them during the day. I can walk by them and hug them at lunch. I can see them for a few minutes after school. In the mornings they come with me and sit in my lap while I work. You just have to find a balance, but yes, it is a very difficult thing to do.
But do you feel that the positives outweigh the negatives?
Yes, yes.
What sort of curriculum-based decisions do you have to make on a daily, quarterly, and yearly basis?
Read that one more time.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
What sort of curriculum-based decisions?
Okay, on a daily, monthly, and yearly basis. On a daily basis, curriculum, as a general rule, we use the state standards. As a pacing guide, we have to decide what those standards, what order they're taught. That is something that we do here in Lee County as a district or system-wide item. As a school, I have to make the decision when a teacher comes to me and says, I've got to have another day to teach this standard. I have to make the decision on, do we have that time, and what adjustments have to be made down the road to make that balance happen.
Okay. How do you get your teachers to embrace different curriculums that may be more difficult to teach and implement, but ultimately will help students achieve?
Again, I think that's training.
Okay.
I think it's training, getting them to understand, breaking down the standards, understand what the standard is asking, understand the steps on how to teach it, and giving them the resources and modeling and ideas to get that done. You can't just hand them, something and say, go do it. They need more than that.
And what do you do in the case where you've provided them with training, you've provided them with resources, however it's not getting implemented correctly?
Yes, that does happen. One of the things that I like to do is try to use our instructional coaches to do coaching cycles, where they go in, the instructional coach will model a lesson. Well, they'll first plan a lesson with the teacher, then they'll model that lesson, then they work side by side, and then the teacher does a lesson while the instructional coach observes and gives feedback, and then I come back in and see if we've made improvements. And I'm just looking for improvements and effort.
And do you feel like this process corrects any misunderstanding within the teaching process of the new curriculum?
I think it gives the opportunity to.
Okay.
What a teacher does with it is up to them. But yes, I feel like it, those who do want to improve and do want to get better, they grow.
Mm-hmm. What professional development have you completed that has impacted the way that you manage the school?
I would say things on just balance, finding out how to balance. I've gone to lots of time management on, how much time should I be in the classroom when I've got parents in the office, or I have children, discipline referrals, or I'm supposed to be in this meeting. I feel like those were the biggest. The other trainings that we received are the trainings on dyslexia and understanding what it takes to get a child to read and the characteristics and how all students learn. Another one would be years ago, I attended one on data and learning how to break down data and what is important and how you start that process. And I just feel like that's very important. Those were things that just really helped me grow.
What has impacted you the most as being a principal? Would you say it was working along someone that you learned from? Would you say it was the professional development? Would you say it was people at central office that assisted you?
They called me raw at central office because I did not have great model before me. And so I just kind of figure out things on my own, but the last two assistant superintendents have been great mentors. I could call the current assistant superintendent. We'll email on Sunday. They're always there to answer questions, and I don't feel intimidated or that they look down on me for my questions, but they really help, and I feel like that's made a big impact because it's kind of untied my hands a little bit, that I can ask questions that I don't know the answer to without feeling that they will look down on me.
And just having that support.
Yes, yes. I have a great administration.
Is that a relationship that you feel that you have built, or were they there for you and provided you with the assistance that you needed in the very beginning?
I feel like you have to ask for help. I will tell you that I feel like you have to ask for help if you need it, but there's not one person at central office that I haven't called up in the upper level that has not immediately email, called, or answered my questions or come provided assistance. You do have to ask for it here, though.
But they're very willing to
Yes.
provide that to you.
Yes.
How do you encourage your staff to take advantages of professional development opportunities that they might not look at in a positive aspect?
One of the things we did in the last couple of years was offered a menu.
Mm-hmm.
On our half days, we gave several different options, but options that a majority of the teachers needed, so it kind of gave them the freedom of choice.
And that changed their perspective
Yes,
about
I
participating.
got better feedback by doing that, but it has to be options that are going to help grow them and not things that they just like to do all the time.
What role do you think the principal should have in determining the professional development for your faculty?
In Lee County, we don't have as much of a role in that as I would like. They give us a general, every school is every K through 6th grade teacher is going to go through this training or that training. I have been able to do, the role I would have is when I do our walkthroughs here, when we did the walkthroughs in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd, where it was very like a formative assessment, went in and we were able to find specific teacher strengths and weaknesses, and then I could develop a professional development to go back in for that grade level, as a grade level for the things that I found and for the individual teachers. So that would be the role that I get to play as far as, but the broader things I don't get.
Okay, so you can make recommendations
Yes.
that
and
your
plan
faculty
things.
needs.
Yes, like I went through with 2nd grade last week. There are some areas where we don't feel like in the whole group instruction they understand that some of it's supposed to be a listening and some of it's, not, and we're going to go back in and clear that up. We'll meet with the teachers. We have a PD plan for them to go through and plan those lessons and teach them what different activities that they're supposed to be doing mean and what they look like, and we'll do that. And that's not countywide, that's Beulah Elementary specific.
So when you're doing these walkthroughs, you're looking at different elements and you're trying to find the weaknesses in each grade level that you can provide them with professional development to strengthen those areas.
Yes, and the strengths, so I know who to send teachers to. This teacher has it down, let you go watch them. Yes, and we give those. We do strengths and areas of weakness for every teacher that we go through and do with the walkthrough.
So when you allow them the opportunity to go into another classroom to watch another teacher teach, what do you do with her class? His or her class
If
at
I
that
have an
time?
instructional coach that can go in, they'll go in and teach while they're gone. If I need to, if it's something that I feel like they need to see a whole day or a half a day, then I'll provide a sub and pay for the sub.
Okay. How has the role of principal changed since you first entered the field of education? Just your view and aspect of the principal role. How has that changed?
I think when I first went in, my father was the principal for 28 years. And when watching him grow up, watching him be a principal, it was more of a manager. Things came to you, manage things, and now you're expected to be the instructional leader. And it's hard. I enjoy it, but that is the role. I had a conversation with the superintendent not too long ago about how the role has changed. And the biggest thing that we both talked about was instructional leader, manager versus instructional leader. And your faculty expects you to understand the instruction process. You know, they don't expect me to know all the sixth grade materials. I'm working on it. They don't, you know, but they understand that I understand what a good lesson looks like and how to make improvements.
And what aspect of the position do you delegate to the assistant principal? Are there certain areas that the assistant principal handles and certain areas that you handle? Or is it more of a collaborative approach?
I love to tell you that I give all the discipline to the assistant principal because I do not enjoy discipline. However, if it comes to me, then I handle it, and bus referrals are the same. You know, I'll pick it up, but that's primarily what they you know, handle safety, they handle discipline. And in Lee County, that's what they like. They like for the assistant principal to handle those things and the principal to be focused more on all the instructional aspects.
Okay, so countywide, there are things that
Yes.
they view should be delegated to the assistant
Yes,
principal.
RTI, I would tell you, is one that they want the assistant principal to be in charge of and run, but not here. You know, I'll let you do the RTI, but I like to be the administrator that comes in with that.
Right.
I just feel like I need to know all my low children and be able to go in when I'm observing and walking through and check on them.
And you being the one that is kind of over instruction, I would see where
Right. I just feel
it's
like
important for you to be a part of those meetings.
Yes.
So your decision on delegating that to someone else, is that something that central office supports? Do they kind of give that option up to the principal as to?
Yes and no. There are some things that they ask for the assistant principal for them to attend the meetings, and then there's some things that they say to delegate to. But I would say there's a lot of, you know, safety is considered an assistant principal, discipline is considered an assistant principal. RTI in every other school but Beulah Elementary is considered an assistant principal's role and responsibilities. I believe a lot of those handle 504 at other schools, but here I like to do the 504s. And then the LEA and special education meetings, we have to split because of our numbers.
Right. How do you work together with the assistant principal to achieve the vision and mission of the school?
We meet. We try to debrief every day, sometimes a couple times a day. When I take my assistant principals through our walkthroughs, and we go through each teacher's information that we collected and decide together what the strengths and weaknesses are. So that's how I try to include them. I try to, you know, pull them in on all my meetings and things like that, just for learning and growing to prepare them for the next level.
And how important is the principal and the assistant principal's relationship, being in a, you know, having a positive relationship and supporting one another and collaborating? How important is that for the vision and mission of the school?
I feel like it's very important. Just like children will conquer and divide parents, your faculty will conquer and divide you if you're not on the same page. So you don't always have to agree outwardly, you have to agree. But you have to keep those discussions in an office and have those talks. I feel like we do pretty well with that here. And I think that's what helps us be successful.
So, in the interviewing process for an assistant principal, I know you take part in the interviewing, is it ultimately your decision?
I led the interviews, yes.
Okay.
I held the interviews. I invited 2 central office staff because I had never hired an assistant principal. It was my first role as principal. And I created my own questions, and they sat with me and we talked, but ultimately, yes, it was we all ranked, you know, kind of got an idea of strengths and weaknesses, and
Right.
But ultimately it was my decision. Now, they happened to pick the same candidate I picked, you know.
So as you're interviewing, you're looking for someone that you are compatible with, that you feel,
Yes.
you know, will,
Comfortable.
right.
Those things matter. I mean, they have to agree with your views, they have to understand the mission and vision of the school, but it also has to be somebody you can live with. So that does, you know, and it has to be somebody that can bring different things to the faculty that I can't bring. So that's what I look for. What can they bring that I can't give my faculty?
Okay. How do you feel that tasks such as lunchroom duty and car rider duty impact the student's daily academic success? Or do you feel?
Well, first thing in the morning and how a kid is welcomed can set the tone for the day, which does impact. You know, if you go into the lunchroom and get yelled at, your brain may not be in academic mode by the time you get to your classroom. And so I do think that those things are important in the afternoon car riders, just building that rapport so they feel safe and comfortable. If you don't feel safe and comfortable, you're not going to be open to learn.
So when assigning the teachers those areas, are you looking at ones that, you know, have a sweet, welcoming demeanor that you would assign as, you know, being in the lunchroom? I mean, is that taken into consideration, or is it?
As much as you can, but then there's also a part that you've got to just provide supervision.
Okay. What role do you play in determining how the content that is taught within the classroom is assessed within each grade level and within the school as a whole?
The classroom is taught with the assessments.
Mm-hmm.
That's a district level.
Okay.
Our district
Decision.
yes, our district gets together with teachers from every school and creates the common assessments in reading and math. What we work on here, I guess, is science and social studies, and so I encourage the teachers to get together per grade level, plan those, and they need to be standards based. I think a lot of them go off of what the reading and math common assessments look like, so I think that helps, but it is definitely something we need to continue to work on.
Okay. How often do you get to interact with the students on a daily basis, and was it hard to adjust being a teacher and then moving into, you know, an administrative role? Was that hard for you, not being able to spend as much time with the students?
Yes, that's one of the things that I miss the most. Now, I've never had a job I didn't like. I taught kindergarten. I loved kindergarten. I really enjoyed kindergarten. And then I moved into special education, and I really liked special education. And then I moved into an assistant principal's position in administration. And I do like my position, but I do miss the interaction with children. The one thing I didn't like about being the assistant principal is the discipline aspect, because I didn't like to fuss all the time. So I don't do discipline a lot. But I do miss that interaction with the kids. And so when I go into rooms, sometimes I'll sit at the tables with them and interact with them and do the, you know, whatever activity, I'll work with them. I would love to do that a little bit more. It's something that I'm working on, but that's the way I try to interact. I'm also involved in our recreation department here, and so I get to interact in a fun way with the kids.
Right. And I'm sure that's important for them to build that type of fun relationship with the
It
principal.
helps with building rapport with the parents too, because they feel like I can call Miss Arnett and she's going to help me.
Right, right. Well, that's all the questions that I have for you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer these for me.
Thank you.